in a black shirt, and they said the officer couldn't find me. So 2 o'clock, I called back, wondering where the officer was. Said he should be pulling up right away. Now I'm in a lot of pain. So I go in the truck stop and ask the manager how to get to the police department, because I didn't know where the Fontana PD was. And he almost, I don't want nothing to do with the police, I don't do, I ain't gonna let you use my phone.
And this is the manager at what business?
At the truck stop across the street.
At the truck stop, the manager of the truck stop.
Right. And one of the employees gave me the phone number of the police department. They wouldn't let me use their phone. So I called the police department, called my wife, she hooked me up with the police department, and I got the address. So at 20 minutes after 2, I drove up to the police department, left there on the way to the police department.
No, you drove up, meaning you
drove from the truck stop.
So nobody accompanied you, you were on your own.
Right. I get to the police department, I guess it's probably close to 3 o'clock. And ask them why didn't the police show up. They said the officer is on his way here to talk to you. I said,
on his way where? To
the police department.
To the station.
To the station.
Thank you.
To talk to me. And so I wait there about an hour. Finally he shows up. I asked him, I said, well, why can't I talk to some other officer? You know, I want to make a report, you know.
And the time happens to be at least, at this point?
This is about 3:30 or so.
Thank you.
And I said, no, you need to talk to the investigating officer, and he's on his way. And 45 minutes later, he shows up. He take me back in the room, and he's apparently had been at SCHNEIDER all this time since I first called him. Instead of coming to me, he went to SCHNEIDER and talked to them. And so I told him I want to file a complaint for assault and battery and for false imprisonment. He said, well, what's the false imprisonment about? And I told him. He said, well, we don't look at that as false imprisonment. I said, well, what right do they have of holding me against my will? I said, when I used to be a police officer, they said it's false imprisonment. Everybody I talk to says it's false imprisonment. Now we'll take a complaint on battery, but not on a false imprisonment. We'll report your statement to the DA's office, but I doubt if we're not going to claim it as a false imprisonment. So I said, listen to the tape. And I handed the tape, and he handed it back to me. He said, I don't need to listen to that. I said, okay. He said, we'll make a report to the DA's office, and then they'll take it from there. About a week later, I didn't hear anything from him, so I called him, and they said he was in training, and he called me back. 3 or 4 days later, he called me back, and he said at that time there was no false imprisonment, and that Brandon and he doubt if they were going to be able to get any charges as far as battery concerned, because Brandon said that he never touched me, and he said, you told me there was no witnesses, and Brandon said there were no witnesses, so ain't much we can do about it. I said, I told you there were no witnesses? I said, don't you guys tape record the conversations of the interview that you when you interviewed me, and play that tape back? I'm not sure whether we tape it or not. I said, you know, when I was a police officer back in the 60s, we used to tape. And I just can't see why you wouldn't have a recording of the conversation. And that would prove to you that I didn't say that there wasn't no witness. I told you there was a light-skinned black guy. I didn't know his name. And then he told me, well, if you go down there and get witnesses, we'll file charges. I said, look, man, these son of bitches, they broke my rib. Now you tell me you won't go back down there with me to look for witnesses. I got to go down there myself. I said, I guess you want me to go down there so they can break my other damn rib.
So you had your rib broken
Yeah.
during the incident.
Right. And I'm telling them, I took them by that time I'd taken them the doctor's report. They wouldn't even take it to show that I had a broken rib. They wouldn't pass on that information to the DA's office. They wouldn't take a supplementary report.
No, who wouldn't pass this information to the DA?
The Fontana PD.
The Fontana PD.
So I end up talking to a lieutenant, and I tape recorded the conversation. I told him I was tape recording the conversation. And he told me that they wouldn't, he said, I don't know who's telling you that that's false imprisonment, but we don't consider it false imprisonment. And this officer, he's been a police officer for 15 years, and he knows what the law is. I said, well, I used to be a police officer, not that long, but I got guys who's retired FBI officer, is a good friend of mine. My daughter's, she's been with the San Diego Police Department for 20-some years, and they say it's false imprisonment. And then I got a fax from a DA, a lady who I met, and she faxed me back saying that if it was reported to me, Mr. Ellis, I would not only charge him with battery, but I would charge him with assault and battery. And so she said, she said, but I can't handle the case. It's not in our jurisdiction. It's in Fontana jurisdiction, so you have to get in contact with them. So I did. I contacted the DA's office in Fontana, and
just backing up, now you said you contacted another office, and which office did you contact?
the main office in San Bernardino.
San Bernardino.
Yeah.
And they informed you that
There was a assault and battery committed on me, and that if it was her, she would investigate it as such and charge them if proven to be a fact.
So subsequently after that, you contacted
The Fontana DA's office. Well, before I did that, I contacted the DA's office. The second time I contacted the DA's office in San Bernardino, the girl working at the front desk told me, you need to file an internal affairs complaint against them. And that's what the state Justice Department told me, that every police department is supposed to have an internal affairs officer, and I need to contact them to make a complaint against the police officer. So I went down to the police department, asked for the internal affairs person, and they wouldn't tell me who it was, but they said they'll have them get in contact with me.
Okay, they wouldn't tell you who their internal
affairs person was.
Who was the police officer you were making the complaint against? This was the investigator.
The Loesch was the police officer I was making the complaint against.
And he's the one that went out originally, am I correct,
right.
on site?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And when I started filing a complaint against him, they turned it over to Lieutenant Tires. I have all that in the complaint. Another lieutenant. That lieutenant sat down with me, and I told him I was recording the conversation. He said that's okay. And we argued, and he went through the same thing, that no matter what my belief is and what other department's belief is, there was no false imprisonment. And without a witness, they don't see how they're going to make a case of assault and battery against Brandon. And then when I called back the second time, they told me, Mr. Ellis, we just not going to do anything else on the case ourselves. But if you go down to the Schneider and find a witness, then we will make that report to the DA's office, and you should be able to get your assault and battery claim filed. I said, you're asking me to go back down there, man, I already broke my rib, and you're going to tell me to go back down there to investigate. I said, well, nothing to keep you from going down there. I said, hell, they escorted me off the property, told me not to come back on the property anymore. Well, did they put that in writing? I said, no. He said, well, you can go. They can't keep you from coming on the property. I said, I'm not going on by myself. I ain't no fool. Well, ain't nothing else we can do about it. So, and then I called the chief's office, talked to Shirley, I think it's somebody. I got that on recording too.
Okay, the chief.
Of Fontana Police Department.
Thank you.
Talked to the secretary. Secretary said she would have the internal affairs person give me a call. I said, what's his name? She wouldn't give me a name. Finally, some guy called me. It was a sergeant. And he told me that he was the internal affairs officer. I said, well, how long you been in internal affairs? He said, well, about a year. I said, then he went on to tell me that I would have to make my report to Sandy is the lady who is the secretary for the chief. I contacted her on 2/18/09, and so this guy who said he's the internal affairs officer now tells me that the internal affairs, the person I need to talk to is Lieutenant Thomas, TONAAS. Yeah.
Keep that thought, Mr. Ellis.